Hey, it's Jared. I'm going to do something a little bit different than what I normally do on YouTube, and that's share something that I wrote. See, I've been writing on a Substack account for quite a while now, and I found it to be not only just therapeutic, but a great way for me to flesh out my thoughts and ideas and my own lived experience. Recently, I wrote an article or a post to Substack called Why Smart People Keep Finding Themselves on the Outside. You see, as I'll get into as I read this, I've had a lot of challenges being a person who is solution oriented and more of a systematic thinker. I wrote this because I've been trying to think through how to exist better in a world where perhaps other people aren't wired the same as me. I don't believe that we should change the way that we're wired in order to fit with other people, but we do need to understand our wiring so that we could better communicate with others. And that is the core thought behind what I wrote. So I'm going to read this, and if you connect in any way with what I'm sharing, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below, or of course you can head on over to the Substack, which I've linked in the description. So this is Why Smart People Keep Finding Themselves on the Outside. What I'm learning about being wired for depth in a world designed for maintenance. I spent the last few weeks in some of the most clarifying conversations of my life, not the comfortable kind, the kind that makes you look in the mirror and ask hard questions about why certain patterns keep showing up. Here's what I've been wrestling with. Why do I keep ending up on the outside of things I deeply care about? It's happened enough times now that I can't dismiss it as bad luck or difficult people. College, my previous church, multiple committees, leadership roles. The pattern is consistent enough that I have to own it. But here's what I'm learning. The pattern isn't what I thought it was. The story I've been telling myself. For years, I've wondered if something is fundamentally wrong with me. Everyone else seems to flow in relationships and organizations. They show up, do their thing, get along, and move forward. Meanwhile, I'm the guy noticing that the committee isn't accomplishing much, that the communication strategy isn't working, that what we say we value and what we actually do don't match up. And then I'm the guy who, after trying to help, after proposing solutions, after investing time and energy, eventually steps back because I've hit a wall and I don't know how to get through. From the outside, it probably looks like I can't commit, like I get frustrated and bail, like I'm the problem. I wondered if that story is in fact true. What I'm actually discovering through these recent conversations, something clicked into place. Not about them being wrong, but about fit and wiring. When I encounter organizational dysfunction, committees that spin wheels, leadership who solicit inputs but never put it to use, systems that say one thing but do another, I respond in a specific way. I see it. I feel compelled to address it. I struggle to move forward without addressing it. Others respond differently, and their responses are just as valid. Some genuinely don't notice the dysfunction, perhaps different wiring, not different intelligence. Some notice, but have learned healthy detachment, wisdom I sometimes lack. Some see it wisely, but choose their battles, discernment I'm still developing. And some are content with incremental change, which is patience I might need to learn. None of these responses are wrong, they're just different from mine. But my wiring to see systems, recognize patterns, and feel urgency about making things better creates a specific kind of friction. Not because I'm better, but because I'm often mismatched to the context that I'm in. The cost of the mismatch. One of my mentors recently told me about a time he supervised highly gifted people in complex environments. These people had sharp analytical skills and deep motivation, exactly what the mission needed. But their local supervisors often experienced them as a problem to be managed rather than assets to be deployed. Not because anyone was bad at their job, but because the supervisor's strengths were in stability and maintenance, while these team members' strengths were in innovation and problem solving. Both were needed, both were valuable. But when the organizational moment called for one and someone brought the other, friction was inevitable. He said something that's been echoing in my head. The strengths that they had were not seen as strengths. They were seen as a problem, either to be boxed or somehow managed. I've been that person over and over. Not because the leaders I've worked with were bad leaders. Many of them were deeply faithful, caring people doing their best in difficult circumstances. But because my particular wiring often shows up at the wrong organizational moment or in context structured for different strengths than mine, what I'm learning to accept. Here's what's becoming clear through all of this. Number one, mismatch isn't moral failure. For years, I've interpreted these experiences as evidence that something is wrong with me, that I'm too critical, I'm too intense, or too unable to just be content. But fit matters more than I realized. Some people thrive in structured hierarchies. I don't, and that's okay. Some people are energized by maintaining what works. I'm wired to see what could work better. Some people process by going along and adjusting slowly. I process by questioning and understanding first. None of these are superior, they're just different. And when my wiring meets a context that needs something else, friction happens. Not because anyone is wrong, but because we're asking each other to be something we're not. Number 2, I can contribute to the problem. I'm learning that my way of showing up creates its own challenges. I tend to overgeneralize. When I see a pattern, I describe it too broadly. Even though I do it to avoid pointing fingers directly, it still makes people feel unfairly characterized. I accumulate observations. Instead of addressing small things early, I gather evidence until I present a mountain all at once, which overwhelms people and feels like an ambush. I lead with problems. My first instinct is to identify what's broken, not celebrate what's working, and I understand that can be exhausting to be around. I assume others see what I see, and when they don't, I can come across as threatening rather than genuinely curious about their perspective. I want depth and reciprocity in relationships. I'm learning that my timeline for when that should develop doesn't match most people's bandwidth or wiring. I also tend to wait too long to address relational issues directly, accumulating frustration instead of speaking up early when things feel one-sided. Then, when I finally do speak, it comes out as a mountain of evidence that can overwhelm people. These aren't excuses. These are real issues that I'm working on. I make relationships at times harder than they need to be. Number 3, going with the flow might be wisdom. When someone tells me I just need to go with the flow, I've been interpreting that as accept dysfunction. But maybe it's actually choose your battles, not everything needs to be fixed right now. Sometimes presence matters more than progress. That's not settling. That's wisdom in certain circumstances. I'm learning there's something beautiful about people who could just show up consistently, serve faithfully in small ways, and be content without needing to change everything. That's a kind of faithfulness I often miss when I'm busy analyzing systems. Number 4, I ask a lot. When I offer deep vulnerability, direct feedback, intellectual engagement, problem-solving partnerships, I'm asking for the same in return. But that's a lot to ask. Most people aren't practiced at that level of vulnerability, haven't been invited into collaborative problem solving, don't process through direct confrontation of issues, and are doing their best they can with limited bandwidth. I need to honor that rather than feeling cheated when people can't meet me there. So what do I do with all of this? Own my part first. Before I assess organizational fit, I need to get better at addressing things early instead of accumulating, using I statements about my experience rather than generalizations, celebrating what's working before diving into problems, staying curious about others' perspectives longer, matching my intensity to the relationship's capacity. I can't control context, but I can control how I show up to them, getting more discerning about fit. Not every mismatch means something is wrong. Sometimes it just means this isn't the right organizational moment for my particular wiring. I need to recognize that faster. When a context genuinely needs what I bring, I can stay and contribute. A context needs something different right now, I can serve in other ways. My presence is creating more friction than value. Maybe I need to gracefully step back. This isn't quitting. It's stewardship of my gifts and respect for others' leadership. Extend more grace. Leaders are often working with limited resources, inherited problems, and competing demands, and they're doing hard work. Just because I see a solution doesn't mean they don't see it too. It's the right time to implement it. They have the bandwidth for it, or my solution is the best one. I need to trust that they are weighing factors I might not see, even as I offer observations they might not have considered. Find complementary partnerships. Instead of expecting everyone to work the way I do, I need to find contexts where my systems thinking complements others' purpose. My urgency balances others' practice. My innovation works alongside others' stability. And my questions strengthen others' convictions. Not everyone needs to be like me, but I do need to find people who value what I bring. The freedom in knowing. Here's what's wild about all of this. I spent years thinking that something was wrong with me, wondering why I couldn't just be content like others, why I couldn't just show up, do my part, and not worry about systems and patterns. Through these conversations, I'm realizing I'm not defective, I'm just rare. My wiring is real, my contributions have value, but they have limits and costs that I haven't fully owned. I make things harder sometimes, not on purpose, but because intensity is hard to be around. Because constant problem identification can be exhausting. because my pace isn't everyone else's pace. And that's okay to name. What I'm taking forward. I don't know exactly what comes next. I'm in the middle of some situations right now where these realizations are forcing decisions. But here's what I know. I'm not going to keep forcing fit where it doesn't exist. I'm not going to label myself as difficult just because I notice what others overlook. Not because those contexts are wrong, but because mismatch serves no one. I'm going to own my part, the ways I create friction, the growth I genuinely need, the grace I haven't always led with. And I'm going to get more discerning about where I invest deeply versus where I serve faithfully from the margins. Some contexts need what I bring, others need something different, and that's okay. If you're reading this and nodding, maybe you're just like me. Maybe you've been called too much or too intense or can't just let things go. Maybe you've wondered why you keep ending up on the outside of things you deeply care about. Maybe you've questioned whether something is fundamentally wrong with you. Let me tell you what I'm learning. You're not broken. You're rare. You're a combination of seeing things clearly, caring deeply, and wanting to make things better. And that's not a flaw, that's a gift. But it means that most places won't fit unless you first develop your gift, and that's okay. Stop blaming yourself. Be willing to adapt and find contexts worthy of your gifts. The world needs more people who see what's broken and believe it can be better. That's not failure, that's wisdom. So what about you? Have you experienced this tension between your wiring and your context? How have you navigated it? I'd love to hear your stories and thoughts down in the comment section below. So thanks so much for sitting with me as I read through this post. It would be really hard to convey all of these thoughts just sitting here if I hadn't written them down first. And I'm not so much a teleprompter guy or anything like that, but I have really enjoyed writing over on Substack. So I've got the link to that down in the description below for you to check out. And of course, I'd love to continue the conversation down in the comment section. Thanks so much for being here with me, and I hope to see you back in another one soon. Take care.